Today I was talking to Rob, and Rob has a very interesting and important story to tell. So be sure to listen to the episode, and without any further ado, I'm just gonna cut right into it.
It was absolutely crazy to be at the center of it because I was on Bitcoin X, um, scrolling like a pleb, as they say, as the meme goes. And these are stories that you see to happening to other people, and then suddenly I'm being shut down. It's like this little guy, David versus Goliath, and I made a meme like that, and I was extremely lucky that it got picked up by the bigger accounts, and the community outpour of support was utterly overwhelming. It was crazy. It was heartwarming. It's like, okay, yeah, this is why I'm here.
Behind this podcast, there are a group of blockchain veterans, and we are here to guide you on your journey to crypto. To get started, you can head to commonplatform.com/guide and download that PDF resource. And with that, you will learn on how to take control over your assets, free your crypto, and use our non-custodial wallet, Komodo Wallet. With that said, let's jump to today's episode. Today we are talking to Rob from BitSaga, and I'm very pleased to have you here, Rob. And I'm going to be talking about your story and how I found you on Twitter and what happened. But before we do that, I'm just going to give you like a brief introduction. So you are a founder of a business called BitSaga that we will talk a little bit more later. And you are a software engineer with 8 years of experience in various companies, and you are on a mission to teach and implement Bitcoin technology for various individuals and businesses through that business that you're operating, the BitSaga. So you are on a good path and very much, I think, aligned with the values of Komodo. So I'm really excited to have you here. So welcome. How are you doing?
It's great to be here, Ado. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Indeed. Yeah, great introduction. Thanks.
So I came across your tweet on Twitter, and that's how I found you. So I'm gonna just read it. So basically what happened, Stripe kind of fired you as a customer because of you were selling Bitcoin miners in essence, and you were in contact with them, and this was their reply. So they replied to you, "Hi Rob, thanks for waiting while we look into this. Looking at your website, it appears you are selling mining hardware. Could you confirm if this is something you would be willing to remove from your website? At present, mining hardware is against our terms of service and is unsupportable." And then you replied to this, but kind of walk us through, like, what were you thinking when the Stripe first contacted you? Like, tell us a story of like what happened.
Yeah, so I guess the trigger was I was doing some updates on the website, and the funny thing is that the Stripe account, the connection, it was working. I was selling mining hardware, and then because I reconnected the Stripe account or did some upgrade to some plugins, um, I got a mail from Stripe saying, "Okay, your account is going to be closed." And I'm like, "Whoa, oh, I just updated something." And then they started checking, I guess, my business, and they saw, okay, yeah, we don't do this. And I couldn't get an answer by mail, so I sent them a message, and the response was, it really shocked me. At the moment, I still remember going like, wow, this is not possible that they put this into words. Because in the mail, I can understand that they went like vague words. I don't even completely remember. Uh, in line with our policy, your business doesn't comply, yada yada, nothing specific. But then the person on X, and I guess, I mean, there's a meme like it's an intern that does the X accounts, like, and they made, I guess you could consider, or I guess Stripe internals could consider it as a mistake that they um, literally went, okay, you're selling mining hardware, you have to take that off your website in order for us to process your payments. And I guess it's not really a mistake because they're absolutely open about it if you look at their restricted business. But I was completely flabbergasted. So I was like, yeah, hell no, absolutely not. There's not a hair on my head. It's a Dutch expression that thinks, that considers complying with you. I mean, this is why I do what I do. This is why we do what we do inside the Bitcoin community. So I took a strong stance, and I'm kind of glad I did. I don't take any words back, and that, I guess that's part of why it went completely viral off the hook. I was a very, very small account, still a small account, and then it got picked up. It was really wild. The response was, yeah, that's not what we're here for, to comply. Absolutely not. So, yeah, took a stance.
Yeah, so your tweet got really lot of likes and retweets and a lot of visibility to this issue, and that's of course how I also found it, kind of randomly browsing Twitter or X. But I'm also kind of shocked and shocked by the wording of how they kind of just told you that because you're selling Bitcoin mining hardware, and I'm thinking like, what is so bad about selling Bitcoin mining hardware? So what do you think is the issue that they are having with people selling mining hardware?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of reactions, and a lot of people had some great additional insights into why they are doing what they're doing, because it shouldn't come as a surprise, arguably, because it's out in the open on their right now on their restricted businesses list. It's a long list of businesses, and they say it's not exhaustive, but in there you have to find the page mining, is you have to scroll down like a lot, and then there's like, okay, yeah, cryptocurrency mining and staking businesses. Those doors are just in their prohibited businesses list. And I guess why that's in there and why that list is so long. There was a guy giving the insight, well, one of the main reasons why Stripe became so big is that there's 3 layers to a payment provider. You have the payment gateway, the payment processor, and then the bank account. And because Stripe is all these 3 layers at the same time, they can integrate really well, but they also hold all the risk. And so this is, I guess, to give them at least a little bit of understanding of why they are so restrictive in their business lists, that because they carry all the risk, they don't want anything to do with anything that carries any risk, because if you extrapolate that into bigger business with bigger numbers, then they carry risk and something goes haywire and they lose out on money. So I guess because they're the 3 layers, that they are very risk averse. But yeah, it's a sad thing to see for entirely honest businesses like myself and many others. I came across many other similar businesses whose tweets or messages did not go viral. Like, yeah, we've had this too. Small business, entirely honest, and you get shut down, and it introduces a hurdle, and it's just sad to see, to get be considered the same as a lot of other things on that inherently risky list, like there's marijuana, drugs, weapons, fire, explosives. Okay, sure, I get that. I mean, we're trying to do good, and that was just very sad. Yeah.
So you found also other businesses were getting basically shut down or fired as a client because they were, for one reason or another, part of this website restricted businesses list, which I also found, and yeah, it was quite a long list of things that you're not supposed to sell. But yeah, I think one of the most surprising thing on that list is the Bitcoin mining hardware. But did you find other businesses that were kind of fired for similar reasons?
Yeah, indeed. So, and perhaps expand a little bit more on indeed the specific weirdness of the Bitcoin mining hardware, because in the end, it's just a computer. It's just a loud computer. I've got one. It's not on right now. It's just a computer at my feet that's heating my office. I haven't heated my office with the classical central heating in the winter. I'm using the miner as a heater. It's just a heater. It's running at a cool 650 watts. It's just a computer supporting the network. You can buy heaters everywhere. You can buy computers everywhere. Stripe would support them, but because it's related to Bitcoin and it just helps the hobby, it helps the network and most people where I sell my kind of custom miners to is intended as a heaters, as really a hobby aspect. Yeah, it's crazy that they forbid the simple computers with the heating aspect. And then I'm definitely not the only one. No, indeed. There's different businesses, like also in Holland, different businesses in Belgium that I've had contact with who had similar experiences. Stripe blocking their account, but also Molly. Molly is another rather big one, but I guess Stripe is the biggest on the international stage. Um, but afterwards, I tried to set up a payment account with Molly, and this is a lot lesser known because the Stripe tweet went completely viral. And I guess a week later, the Molly, pretty much exactly the same payment gateway, tried to set up an account, and they said no. Surprise, surprise. And that tweet got like 2 likes. So that was more the story, what's happening most of the time. You get shut down and there's nobody that hears you. And that's just the way it is. And that's, yeah.
And this is a decision made basically by the business. So there's no regulation that would ban like the sale of mining hardware, as far as I know, or are you aware of any such thing? Like, or is this purely just made by the payment gateway, in this case, the Stripe?
No, correct. Indeed, it's absolutely just done by them. They have the right to provide their services, I guess, to whomever they like, just as everyone does. I don't have to sell my products to you. They don't have to provide service to me. And because they are such a centralized part, they're just such a key pivotal pillar in, oh yeah, you want to accept digital payments. Yeah, one of the first thing you think of is Stripe. They hold so much power, and that's like the whole reason of existence for Bitcoin, right? That's the exact thing that we're trying to mitigate. That there is no such thing, that it's just your opinion, Stripe's opinion. It's a big business, but you find this or that risky. Okay, stop playing. And that's just wrong. It's not free. It's not open. It's not open. Yeah, free. What I said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what concerns me is that there's so many big businesses that we could list probably a dozen, but they have so much power and they can just make these decisions even though they are not like regulated in the law or regulation, and basically like they can bully like a small business like what you have, and just kind of be a huge pain in the ass, and like you do something wrong and then you get punished. So that's like a real threat scenario that I guess we are seeing more and more happening. So hopefully it won't come an issue, but to me this is a bit concerning that this can be happening, because like
Yeah,
a business
absolutely.
like you do need to accept payments, and then what if all the payment processors just say no thank you. So how have you solved this problem for your business? Like did you find another processor who accepts that you are selling Bitcoin mining hardware?
Basically, no. There is not a single processor that I have found that does what I would like to do. And in the case of Belgium, it's a little bit specific to Belgium. There's this, the most used payment option is Bankcontact. And you got very limited options. Stripe and Molly and some other things, but then you have to jump a lot more administrative hoops. Um, so no, there is nobody that provides the easiest payment gateway. And so what is the result now? That there's just a lot more friction in the payment process. You can pay with Bitcoin, of course. You can pay with PayPal. PayPal's a lot less concerned with um, risk, or they mitigate it otherwise. They have sometimes very high fees, which is another thing that yeah, you could get into. But yeah, it's just completely shut down basically.
Yeah, and to me, and I guess like in Komodo, like you have the values of self custody, that you keep your coins, you have the private keys and the seed phrases, but like mining is this whole another side of this coin. That in the first place, for the network like Bitcoin network to be decentralized and robust, it needs that there are many people mining it. So it's a bit concerning that if you are trying to restrict the sale of this mining hardware, do you see this as you're kind of selling this mining hardware? Like, do you see this as a trend? Like, has there been a discussion with regulation about restricting the sale of mining hardware? Because of course there's been things like we could talk about the environmental impact and what the media is telling about the environment and Bitcoin mining. So what do you see out there in the regulatory landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that's a huge aspect of why they're doing what they're doing, and why they are seeing it, considering it as risky business, the mining hardware, because there is this, the main narrative around it is you're using a lot of energy. Proof of work is you're using a lot of energy. The network uses as much energy as what's the current country. Um, and the short-sighted conclusion then is, well, Bitcoin transactions use so much energy, which is a debunked by now for multiple reasons, um, and for multiple aspects. But that's the reason that you're, I guess, being considered as a risky business. Also, the narrative around the mining that it consumes a lot of energy. It's not good for the environment. You have a lot of waste, and you can really feel when you start to dig deeper into this stuff, the climate effects, and you start to dig, and Daniel Batten has done some great research on this in really providing high quality academic insights into um, debunking most of the claims that currently surround it, and shifting the narrative more positively, because that's what happens when you look deeper into these things. Okay, yes, mining hardware, mining, proof of work, uses a lot of energy. But what kind of energy? And the meme goes, and I think that's a very beautiful one, that it doesn't waste energy, it uses waste energy. And I think that's a beautiful summary of what's actually happening on a micro and a macro scale. That energy plants, they need demand of last resort, is the base load demand, because you have all these peaks and the mismatch, especially with um, the renewable energy hype that's happening now, and we are shifting the entire grid into more intermittent loads. And we're seeing, whoa, we have these miners who have an economic incentive that are now buyers, and our excess energy can also go there. They are always paying for this. They can run anywhere. They are running 24/7. And you can really see it's a big incentive into renewable energy projects. So it's really sad to see the main narrative being, oh wow, it uses so much energy. Bad. I mean, that's not what we want, right? And actually, that's what you want. That's absolutely what you want. I hope the Bitcoin network consumes a lot more energy than it does right now, because that means that there's a lot more renewable energy projects being funded, base load being on the network, and we can have a more a shift towards a more renewable energy on our network grids. And then it's not even considering the CO2 and the methane mitigation, where there's methane coming out and you can capture it and use that as an energy source for miners, which previously had an insufficient economic incentive. It wasn't just economically viable enough. And right now with these miners, there is. And so there's so much of positive things happening on the energy side of Bitcoin mining. And the main narrative just is the exact opposite of what the reality is showing. And I guess when these things can align a bit more, and we just have to be relentless about, sorry, no, you're wrong. Research, this is what's happening at the very micro and macro scale, that this is actually good. And the funny thing is this, if you look at, I've got it open, Stripe has stripe.com/climate. First sentence, carbon removal technologies. I mean, methane mitigation is such a hot topic right now in mining. Daniel Batten is doing great research on it again. And that's exactly what Bitcoin miners are doing. They should be not blocking them. They should be, oh, you're a miner? Yeah, let's give you some less transaction fees because you're actually doing good. That's what we want. This is progress. This is not risky business. And so we have a lot of work to do in lining up the narrative with the reality.
For sure, and you brought many great points, and also this reference to this Daniel who's debunking. So we have to put that. We'll put that to the description box so everyone can find the source for that. And yeah, there's so much to say about this topic. like I think it's often like oversimplified, a lot of these things, like what some things are environmentally bad or not. Like these topics are never so clear cut. Like it's a lot of complications, a lot of things are complicated. And when I go to your website, bitsaga.be, I love the page you have. It's called Mine and Heat, which I think tells the story that you were kind of referencing earlier as well. Because also, like, well, you're mining, but the miner is heating your home. So couldn't we reuse this energy so it actually provides something useful? Because a lot of people, including I have this what is this electric heat pump. So basically, I'm also burning electricity to heat my home. But what if I would just put a few Bitcoin miners under the windows? I think I could do the same job and maybe even make a profit. So it would be free heating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an overlooked dynamic that you, from within the community, start to see crazy cool hobby projects of people taking these old miners. The ones I'm selling, I also sell bigger ones, the Bitmain S9s, because they're so old. They are now very cheap and accessible to regular people who don't want to spend thousands of dollars, thousands of euros. And you can get one for like 200 euros, and it is indeed it's a Bitcoin miner, but I think it's essential for um, shouldn't say normies, but more normal people that they start to see it not as a Bitcoin miner, but as a heater, because that's just what it does. It is converting energy. And on the miner, I have below my desk, there's some little LEDs, but the main energy is purely being converted into heat. And you have these fans um, that's consuming very little energy and the most of the heat, and you can configure your heating consumption 500 watts, 1,000 watts, and then there's bigger models that depending on your room size you can customize it to whatever you need, and that's a great shift, I think, in um, in the mining hardware, that it's not about Bitcoin mining per se. I'm legitimately, last winter, I have not turned on my central heating. This is a rather small office, but I've completely heated this space with this single Bitcoin miner. And just as I say on the website, is it profitable right now? No, it's not, because consumer electricity prices are too expensive with relation to the sats, the small amount of Bitcoin that you're mining. But when the price goes up, which is doing very much right now at the moment, um, and as small miners, you don't have to sell immediately. You can just wait for the price go up. You can just reach break even to heat your house at the same time. So that's a great. It's just something entirely new, right? That you can um, that you have to wrap your head around, and people the main concern of people is that, well, okay, it's a heater, I get that, okay, but is it profitable? And it's a bit of a mind bend, but then how profitable is your central heating right now?
Yeah.
It's not, right. You can wait for whatever happens in the world. You're just putting money into it, you're getting heat, that's it, that's the end of the story. And now with a Bitcoin miner, you have this you're exposed to the upside of the price, and it's a brainless decision for me. It's absolutely brainless, because even if the price goes down, so be it. I have to heat my office anyway. Yeah, it's a big shift in thinking. I think.
And another thing to consider is the kind of the upside. Like we are trying to build this new technology, then what could it turn into? So is it worth it to shut it down because we think it's burning a bit too much electricity today, but then what about 5 years or 10 years? Like where could this technology be at? And I'm always annoyed with this media narrative. Like they never point out like what is the cost of the current financial system, like how much carbon dioxide or whatever electricity does it burn, because you need to have these brick and mortar buildings all over the world is called banks. And you need staff, you need a lot of things, you need to also heat these buildings, they need a lot of stuff. So Bitcoin is trying to build like a global payment network that would hopefully be able to scale so that everyone can use it in the world. And if you would be able to get there, then would it be more efficient than the current system we have, which is more like manual people putting numbers to computers all around the world. So there's a lot of savings and like this. So it's a lot more complicated thought that if something is green or sustainable or not.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been specific research about indeed comparing it with the legacy banking system. And it's a very difficult comparison because there's a lot of variables, and but I guess the idea is at least you can have a system that doesn't only consume energy, but it mitigates. And that's just a very basic concept that people are already aware of, just not in the context of the Bitcoin network. Being, if you put solar panels on your roof, they cost to produce like resources, and they have a negative impact on the environment. Full stop. But then that's not the full story. No, you're mitigating your energy usage by getting energy from the sun. And so it's worth it because you're mitigating your CO2 and or whatever emissions that you're not consuming electricity from like coal power plants. And so that's just a thing that you have to take into account. Okay, there's an impact, but what's what's the flip side of it? And just like with a windmill, right? It has an impact, but then there's benefits to it, the mitigation of the energy. And just like that with the Bitcoin network, it's literally the greenest industry of the world, and the numbers are increasing rapidly. Again, it's again Batten with the main research on it, but he's also leaning on different or multiple academic researches and reports from miners that, okay, where's your energy coming from? And they are renewable resources, and it's from stuff like methane, which is incredibly powerful as a greenhouse gas. So that positive effect you also have to take into account into the broader vision of, okay, what's the energy consumption, what's the network? And it's really not that difficult because we know how to do it with solar panels and electric cars, right? They use lithium, they use resources, they have a negative impact on the environment. But then in the end, it's the idea is that it's a net positive, and it's clear to see. And just like that with the Bitcoin network, it has an impact, but it's a net positive when you look at the numbers already today, and they are trending greener rapidly. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
positive, definitely.
So let's now shift the gears a little bit and talk more about the regulation landscape out there. So I'm kind of want to pick your brain on this and on what you see as a business owner, maybe what you have experienced. But we know that there's a lot of crypto regulation incoming and has been the trend over the years. So what's kind of your take on where are we with this regulation and what's happening out there?
Yeah, and I think it's very much tied together, right? The narrative that we currently have with Bitcoin, not only being that it's bad for the environment, but that it's used by criminals or slow and expensive, or what's the other main counter reasons that you think when you read your first articles?
Yeah, some terrorist funding and
Terrorist funding, yeah.
criminals are
The
using it.
classics, the classics, and I think they are really tied. That you have this narrative that media is propagating, and companies are seeing that, not doing their own deep dive. It took me quite a while, I must admit, to completely grasp, okay, this is a good thing. And I guess media and companies and policymakers are simply not there yet. And you really see that policymakers are actively worried about the negative impacts of high energy consuming cryptocurrencies. mainly Bitcoin, of course, because of its proof of work. And yeah, it's just a lack of perspective that drives these policy changes. In the US, you can see um, politicians actively being worried about the negative ecological impacts, and then in the EU, um, the same. And just like what's happened with the FTX debacle and a whole slew of exchanges going bankrupt in the last bull bear in the last previous cycle, I guess, um, that you can see, hey, this is risky business. These are people leveraging up. These are people not, they're taking the money of people and being irresponsible with it. And that's what drives, I guess, the policy, the main policy that's now coming to the EU, the MiCA regulation, markets in crypto assets. Um, when you dive into it, you can really see that the main concern is, okay, you are handling crypto assets, um, CASPs they call it, crypto asset service providers, and there's different categories. If you provide different services, you fall in different buckets. But the main gist really is, okay, you have to ensure continuity of your business. Fill in these books, fill in this paperwork. Be sure that your employees are qualified. You need to have capital requirements. You need to have continuity plans. You need to have risk mitigation documents. You need to have this and that. You need to have um, a lot of things. That's just, I guess, the intention is, well, it's good. Yeah, we don't want our EU civilians to invest in things and then lose their money. Okay, that's a good thing. But the amount of administrative hassle that you have to go through is utterly absurd as a small business owner. If you want to provide um, buying payment stacking options, you want to automate some buying for your customers, and you're not even holding um, Bitcoin, crypto on your own balance sheet in the name of your customers, there's an absurd amount of documentation of administration that you have to go through in order to comply. And so, as a small business owner, you simply don't. You really don't. It's utterly absurd. And I've seen multiple small other businesses moving to Switzerland. And I think it's no coincidence that we now have great services like Bitter and Pocket, which are, in my opinion, one of the best options to buy Bitcoin. They are in Switzerland because of previous regulation that came out, and I know the guy behind Bitter, talked to him personally, and he said, yeah, there was regulation coming. That was before Mike. I can't come up with the name yet. And yeah, he fled with his business to Switzerland. And that's something that um, it's really stifling innovation. It's just such a classical thing that's happening with policymakers um, running behind the facts of, let's say, they're trying to do good. And I do believe it in most cases. But I also think that there's a lot of lobbying going on from businesses in the industry who would be negatively affected if Bitcoin really takes off. And I don't think it's difficult to see which kind of businesses, like payment processors, like Stripe, would be, oh, okay, or PayPal, who are now raking in juicy transaction fees and getting sidelined by this new technology that you can send Lightning transactions. We can do a QR code right now and instantly send wherever you are Satoshis, no payment processor, no permission, no restricted business list. Um, so I think there's a lot of incentives. I think there's a lot of narrative, and there's a lot of work to be done with all of these things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have been seeing kind of the regulation come in over the years, and you need to do more paperwork, and now they're kind of telling you that you cannot sell Bitcoin miners anymore. Where do you see this leading, or are there other ways that are affecting your business, and kind of how are you preparing for these things that are coming?
It's really hard to predict. I think there's multiple scenarios, um, but in the end, I'm faithful that truth will emerge within the wider population, media, narrative, corporations, and policymakers. Because if you look at the data, if you look at the numbers, then Bitcoin's a really good thing for whatever you think it's bad now, like the climate impact, um, banking a lot of people in the world that now don't have access to financial services. Um, yeah, so where this is going, I think that we have to be relentless about what's actually going on. That this is freedom technology. This is about you and me wanting to do what we want to do, whatever it is, whatever innovative thing that we want to do, and not being subject by a central thing, whether that's a corporation or a country's legislation, and that we can innovate and provide services for people, whatever it is that we want to do. And we have a payment gateway. And our store of value doesn't leak to inflation, that you have a fixed supply of 21 million and that money is just not being printed because someone decides to. And I think what we're currently seeing is very hopeful. A lot of people are waking up. I guess the price action is the first head turner for most people. And then we can reel them into, hey, this is about way much more than just number go up technology. This is about freedom. This is about a lot more, because there's a lot of incentives and structures currently in place that stifle that. We really need this. Yeah. So I'm absolutely hopeful for the future going forward, for policymakers, for everything. But I also think it's going to be a fierce battle. There's this meme of first they laugh at you and then some phases, then they fight you. I do think that the then they fight you phase is yet to come, and it's going to be, could be quite ugly. But that's speculation. Um, but I'm wary of that. It scares me a little bit, but the truth is out there, and the internet is out there to propagate the truth. And I think that's in our favor. Yeah.
Certainly. And I guess this is like a positive thing that we are seeing, that what you did. So basically you stood up for Stripe, and I guess for all the Bitcoiners, as you kind of reply to them that you would then rather not use Stripe, but you're gonna keep selling Bitcoin miners. So you took this stand, and I think a lot more people need to do this. And then also we need to ensure that these people are heard and their stories are told. So I'm hoping that maybe other podcasters would pick your story up or pick a story from someone else who has experienced something similar. So I'm gonna just now read the reply, how you replied to them. This was in your tweet. So you said they're requesting to remove the Bitcoin miners from your website. You said no. BitSaga will keep selling Bitcoin mining hardware. Bitcoin mining hardware is the freedom technology to secure the only open, fair, fixed monetary supply system in the world. If Stripe deplatforms BitSaga from selling Bitcoin mining hardware, I consider this discriminatory censorship and against my terms of adoption. You are on the wrong side of history. Bitcoin doesn't need you, you need Bitcoin. And then this took the whole thing kind of viral on Twitter, and there's a number of other tweets that you were following up and giving updates. So give us now like your latest update on what's happening with this situation.
Yeah, so this situation, it was absolutely crazy to be at the center of it, because I was on Bitcoin X, scrolling like a pleb, as they say, as the meme goes. And these are stories that you see happening to other people, and then suddenly I'm being shut down. It's like this little guy, David versus Goliath, and I made a meme like that, and I was extremely lucky that it got picked up by the bigger accounts, and the community outpour of support was utterly overwhelming. It was crazy. It was heartwarming. It's like, okay, yeah, this is why I'm here. It's real. It's happening. It's great. And I did some follow-up tweets. People reached out. Daniel Batten started chatting with me. Lisa Huff started chatting. So that was completely crazy. But then it relatively quickly died off, I guess. Because, like I said, a week later or so, I'm not sure about the specific time frame, Molly, very similar payment gateway, did exactly the same thing, and it was just dust ball. Nothing really happened. No engagement. Nothing. So in the end, in some regard, or for now, let's say, I lost. They shut me down. You can't pay with Bancontact, the most used Bitcoin, the most used payment option in Belgium, on the BitSaga website today. You can't. So for now, they won the battle, but the war is still going on, and I guess the current state of thing is we just bring awareness about what's going on, and that we're trying to do good. And podcasts like this.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's still it's strange and unfortunate. But like you said, like hopefully we can make people more aware of that these things are happening. And I think we are just looking at the tip of an iceberg, and it's happening probably on many other industries as well, and in many other aspects in our lives, as we are kind of just busy living our lives, and then big businesses kind of make some rulings and affect a lot of things and control data, control money, and control who's in business, and kind of stomp on the little guy. But I want to talk about something positive now. So on your website, you have the website bitsaga.be, you offer various things. For example, you're doing some education on Bitcoin and you're offering some workshops and hands-on things on how to use Bitcoin, and you're helping people and businesses to invest in Bitcoin, if I understood correctly. So I guess first I would ask you to kind of, what do you see as the obstacles with Bitcoin adoption? Like what needs to be done, what needs to happen? What do you think are the biggest things?
Yeah, I think it's mainly about, as I said, the narrative currently surrounding Bitcoin and shedding that narrative from the rest of the industry, which with stuff like crypto dick butts and some ridiculous NFTs and some dog meme coins and exchanges getting hacked and founders running away with your money, never to be seen. Um, Narrative that it's for criminal, bad for the environment, slow and expensive. Um, I guess it's all about getting the word out. Um, but the main obstacles, I think, really are these preconceptions, misconceptions that people now have because of the current information that's out there. And luckily, I think the current or the new price cycle is gonna bring in a new flurry of interest. And then it's up to us to shift the focus immediately through to the bigger thing, that it's not about um, getting rich, the number going up, but about the freedom to transact and being able to store the fruits of your labor and not being devalued by bankers or politicians or whoever decides that something needs to happen. And yeah, I guess the main obstacles are the current narrative, and what we do is what we're doing right now, right? Um, Talking about it. So yeah, I guess that's the main things to be done indeed.
Well, tell us more about what you do with your business, the BitSaga. Like what kind of solutions do you have and what you're offering?
Yeah. So BitSaga started out as a completely different thing still. It was first Saga Crypto, and it was still focused on more crypto as a whole. But now it's a strictly Bitcoin only business. And I guess there isn't a main focus. It's really about all the aspects that I think um, deserve attention into educating people about it, um, with guidance alongside products, consultancy for individuals and businesses, workshops, and then also the product itself, self custody to hold your own keys. That's really important, especially nowadays where the ETF narrative is so strong, where the ETFs are being embraced by the entire community of look at how much Bitcoin they're gobbling up, and the fresh miner supply is only so little. And I think it's a beautiful thing, but we can't forget that they are not our friends. If you listen to podcasts of Whitney Webb, I can wholeheartedly recommend about BlackRock on the Peter McCormack podcast. Um, you realize that self-custody is really important. And that's something that BitSaga with the products and also with the education is really focusing on. So education, self-custody products, Bitcoin-only hardware wallets. I try to offer a limited amount to reduce confusion and the choice paralysis. Because if you look up what's the 10 best hardware wallets, you find a long list, and okay, which one do I buy? And the miners also, because I think the home heating use case is it's beautiful. It's simple. You plug it in, you get heat, you get free Bitcoin. A payment gateway is also still very much a thing, but there's a lot of um, competition on that space because Bitcoin is open source technology. You can have, unlike the fiat world where there's very limited amount of players, you have Molly, you have Stripe, and I don't know of another one to do the bank contact payment. But there's a lot of Bitcoin payment processors popping up from everywhere doing really great things. So it's really hard to compete with those. So I'm really focusing on products and services and helping people specifically because you have a different set of questions, because you have different knowledge, you came across different things in your journey. So that's the angle that BitSaga is really trying to do with products and services specifically for the things that you as an individual or as a business specifically are looking for. Okay, this is what we're looking for. Okay, these products and these things seem good for you. You're a business, you have a large magazine, you want to heat? Sure. Let's put two S19s in there. What's your energy consumption? What's the heat you want to produce? You want to self-custody? Okay, small amount, and then some explainer with that. So that's a big thing. And then also working on a DCA peer-to-peer option platform thingy where users can DCA from people, not from exchanges, but from peer-to-peer. But that's very early stage. But I do believe that the decentralized aspect of it all, self-custody, holding your own keys, mining yourself, running your own node, helping people with that, buying DCA from peer-to-peer, all these
what is the
things.
DCA?
Sorry, dollar cost averaging.
Uh-huh.
So instead of going buying lump sum, that would be the counterpart, putting in $1,000 once. You just spread it out, buy a smaller amount every week, every month, and you just even out the volatility that we do have. And you don't have to be so mindful of the price, and you just, okay, I want some of this, I want some exposure of this technology. I want to store my value, the fruits of my labor. I don't want to be inflated away. I want to hold my own keys. And yeah, so we're helping with different things, but we're really focused on Bitcoin only and seeing where there's demand and just anticipating and moving there, because I think the space is moving very fast.
Yeah, you are on a important mission, Rob, and we salute you. And the non-custodial aspects are very important, and educating people on how to get started with Bitcoin. So how can people find you? Like tell us where you are, like what's your X handle and website and everything
Yeah,
else.
so the X handle was still from a time when it was a non-profit, more crypto idea that totally changed. It shifted a lot around through the years. So at bitsaga_org, bitsaga.be, the website mainly. That's a very important anchoring point, I guess. Um, yeah, that's where the people can find me.
Awesome. And yeah, do you have anything else? Do you think we covered what we wanted to cover, or do you have any final thoughts, something you want to say?
I think we covered a lot of interesting things. Um, things happening on a very small scale to small businesses that we can see happening on a very big scale, with the payment processors, with the positive impact on climate change. And I think the most important takeaway is that you have to study and you have to propagate the information just as we're doing here. And once you know, you feel this urge of spreading the information yourself. So it was really great to be here and do exactly that. Thank you, Ado.
Yeah, thank you for joining, Rob. Thank you for listening to the episode. We are eager to hear your thoughts and feedback, as well as your ideas for future guests or stories that we should be covering. If you have any of those, then head over to our Discord. You can find that at commodoreplatform.com/discord. And in addition, be sure to also check out that guide and sign up to a newsletter at commodoreplatform.com/guide, and then download that non-custodial wallet and free your crypto from the exchanges.